Australia's pilot.
Hello, my name's Ethan, and we are going on a tour of the Maritime Museum in Fremantle. This was a tour I did a few years ago on a show that was made for broadcast on the Vision Australia radio network. It was a really fun day out. We got to have a tour of the whole museum, and then eventually they said, would you like to go and check out the submarine? And I was like, hell yeah, I want to check out the submarine. So that's what we're going to go check out today. You'll notice that my voice sounds pretty different because it was recorded so long ago, but I did the best job I possibly could at describing what we found and what we went through on the tour. So yeah, here we go.
Outside the museum's entrance, we can see the calm waters of the Fremantle harbour. We can hear seagulls calling and people talking on the concrete steps. We enter the building through a large revolving door. The museum's manager of learning and creativity, Wayne Walters, stands in the foyer. He's going to show us the main section of the museum.
Welcome to our WA Down Under gallery. So this is a space within our Maritime Museum where we're trying to give people a chance to see and experience what lives beneath the boats. So being a maritime museum is all about life on the water and the edge of the water, but for this space, the focus is what's in that water itself. And the first point that we start with over here is our megamouth shark.
A large steel tank with windows all around stands at the entrance, a bit taller than head height. Inside the tank is a full-size megamouth shark, suspended in a yellowy-green liquid that fills the entire tank. The shark is about 5.5 metres long, with several rows of small teeth.
This is quite an amazing specimen that's being collected here for us. The really interesting thing that we are trying not to shy away from is that there's so much left to still be discovered about this animal. It's to encourage people to look at how much is left to discover, how much is left unknown, and hopefully encourage some people to think, well, I want to research a bit more. Or if you're a youngster, you might want to think, how do I find out more? Can I become a marine biologist? How do I become a researcher as well? So one of the interesting things about megamouth here is that it's very rarely seen, and also that it has a quite unusual diet. When we look inside its mouth, you can see it's a very large mouth, and that's where the name megamouth comes from. It's large enough I could probably fit most of myself inside that. The structure of the teeth itself is really interesting because a lot of sharks, people think of them as being carnivorous meat eaters with teeth that are designed for gripping and shredding and biting big chunks off. This guy isn't. His teeth are in fact for either helping with holding some slippery and slimy food, but most of his diet actually comes from eating microscopic food. Megamouth shark itself is a filter feeder, so it's pretty much bringing in large mouthfuls of water, filtering out the food that it eats, the plankton that it eats, and then ejecting the rest of that water. Along the way, though, it may pick up small fish, jellyfish, but the main thing it relies on would be the plankton that it filter feeds. And out of filter feeding sharks, there's only 3 on the entire planet that we know of right now. One of them being a whale shark, so people who've journeyed further up north in Western Australia may have had a chance to swim with them or have seen them from the back of a boat. The basking shark is another one, and megamouth is our 3rd filter feeder.
Can I just ask, how is it preserved?
Originally preserved it in formalin. Being in that sort of preservative, over time it has wear and tear on the actual specimen. And so what they've done over time is they've gradually gone along and changed it from formalin, ethanol, across to being in a glycerol solution. The end result for that is it's actually plumped up the shark as well. So rather than becoming quite shriveled from its previous preservation methods, it's actually filling out a little bit more as well.
Wayne walks us further into the gallery. There are several full-size boats and yachts suspended from the high ceilings. There's groups of children running around looking at the exhibits. We're taken through a walkway beneath the 2nd floor. The area is dimly lit by a blue light. White moulds of coral protrude from the wall. They feel rough to touch. A projector shines on the coral to show what they look like underwater.
This wall itself tells a story through art, the importance of coral and what is coral bleaching and how does that actually occur. The way this canvas works for us is, one, it's a tactile experience, so you can feel the limestone texture of the coral skeletons. The second part to it is we're actually projecting onto it. So the projections that go onto this canvas, the first part is it shows you the assorted colours that corals can come in through a visual art. But then we tell the story of how these corals have those colours because of this amazing algae that lives inside its skin. It's got a fancy name. It's called zooxanthellae algae. And this algae captures light energy, makes food for itself, and excess nutrients, if you like, goes to the coral to keep it alive and healthy. But what happens around the world when we're experiencing climate change, for example, or it may be because of toxins entering aquatic environments or other disruptions, when the coral becomes stressed, one of its stress responses is it ejects all this algae out of its body. So when it ejects the algae, it loses its color. So when it loses its color, it becomes almost translucent, if you like. And if the environmental conditions don't return back to normal, for example, the right sea temperature, that coral can't withstand that level of stress, so it simply dies. And all that's left behind would be the white skeletons. We don't want people to think that it's all doom and gloom. So up here, we've included things people can do to cause that change and to try to reduce the chances of this bleaching process. Everyday things that are achievable by everyday citizens. And as each of those steps come up, you would have noticed that the coral wall gradually came back to life as well. So getting people to think about pollution, to think about alternative energy use, to reconsider some of the uses of fossil fuel. Can they walk to a certain location? Can they use public transport? Can they make sure that whenever they go fishing or use a marine environment for boating or just going to the beach, they take their rubbish home with them? So a range of achievable things for everyday citizens.
Behind us are several thick panes of glass, with pictures of dolphin and fish across them.
This space here is about watching dolphins. The boat that's behind this glass here, her name is the Lady Forest. She was a pilot vessel that was used to escort ships safely into Fremantle port.
Behind the panes of glass is a large boat. The mast and sail stand fully upright, almost reaching the top of the high ceiling.
Those ships were carrying all kinds of cargo, but quite often accompanying those ships and exploring and checking them out would be pods of dolphins. In fact, we get them here today. So if you're lucky enough to be outside in the cafe or having a look through the glass windows, sometimes you'll see dolphins travelling up and down our waterway just outside here. And this space, which we call watching dolphins, is all about that. It's about how do you tell which dolphin you've seen? And it links into this really corny idea, fingerprints, okay? All of us have our unique fingerprints that help us to identify who is whom. But for dolphins themselves, they're quite cryptic in their own right, because they're underwater, obviously. But the part that comes up to the surface would be their dorsal fin. And the markings and the shape of those dorsal fins can help citizen scientists identify who's who and where they're being found along our waterways.
Wayne takes us through the walkway and out to the main gallery. We walk towards a wall where a television shows a photograph.
What it's showing is a leafy sea dragon on the hand of a diver. The space that we're actually standing in, we're referring to as Dragon's Den. There's a lot of imagination that goes with it, but that imagination is triggered by amazing adaptations that these animals have for survival.
The leafy sea dragon gets its name from all the leafy appendages that protrude from its body. It's got a light brown colour, and it's not much larger than the palm of my hand. The sea dragon is closely related to the seahorse and the pipefish. Over thousands of years, the sea dragon has evolved its leafy texture as the ultimate form of camouflage. Wayne goes to open a small stainless steel drawer below the television, showing real specimens of seahorses and sea dragons.
In each of these drawers, there are specimens of sea dragons and their cousins as well. But when you look at these animals here, we can start to see the relationship in their body shape between your average seahorse to then eventually becoming a sea dragon. So when we look at the sea dragons as a point of difference, you'll see changes in their body shape. You'll still see some recognizable things that seahorses may have had about the positioning of fins, etc. But the use of camouflage amongst at least two of the three sea dragon species, so leafy appendages on their body to help with that camouflage, so it keeps them safe from predators, but it also helps with them ambushing their next meal as well. These are our pipefish, so the shape of them, once again, very different. So in fact, quite serpent-like in some ways too. So that's one way we share our collections, as a physical sample, using some of our 3D imaging as well to examine the inside and outside of these critters too. The original intent was to 3D scan a sea dragon, a pipefish and a seahorse as well, or several different sorts of sea dragons, and to actually 3D print or cast models that people can physically touch as well. So you can see them digitally, you can examine real specimens of draw and then touch a physical representation of them.
We enter a dark room. On the far wall, a projector shows a 3D animation of an underwater environment. Music plays from a set of speakers in the back corners of the room from the ceiling.
The fish, the eel. The eel. Touch the eel.
Welcome explorers. Museum researchers investigate many marine habitats. Step into their dive fins to see what you can discover. And right in front of me right now is a digital representation of that. And that's being an amazing blue space filled with life, amazing coral structures around you, and some animals that respond to you. This has been set up so that way certain animals will glow a shade of blue, which means they're ready to interact with you, and you actually use your shadow to cause them to respond. So if I step onto the mat here and I reach out with my shadow towards the stingray, it responds to me and starts to move. The tiger shark that goes past, and all of that's done through picking up the location of your shadow through sensors that are integrated into this experience. Once people have gone through and they've explored, they've interacted, we want to give you a chance to find out about each of those. And that's where we've set up a touch screen just behind you to look at learning about reef residents. And if you wanted to find out about moray eels, there's a clip about them that helps to put you into the scenario through the interactive experience, and then an opportunity for you to learn more as well.
We exit the room and return to the main gallery. On the far side of the room, an old panel van is parked. A green surfboard sits on the roof of the car. The interior has a leather bench seat in the front, with brown fur on the doors and skirting. On the back window is a sticker that reads "Disco Sucks."
It's all about life on the water, living around the water, visiting the water as well, and in some cases it's for all spectrums. So it's not all just about the wealthy yacht owners, it's also about people who stick their board on the roof of their car and go off on their surf safari. The object just behind me is one of those iconic elements there. It's a panel van. Originally a utility vehicle like this could have been used by tradies, etc. It was used by police as well, not as a panel van, but as a paddy wagon to escort people that the police have collected along the way. But a utility vehicle like this was chosen by people who were living that surf culture of that time, because the handy thing about this, when you put the back seats down, or if it didn't have back seats, it's the right size to fit in a single mattress. So it's perfect accommodation for, as I said, that surf safari. Something like this panel van originally as a utility vehicle, back in the day it would have been worth around about $6,000 or so, but I hear that fully restored, ready for your man cave, it's worth about 60 grand.
Jeez.
So an object like this relates that story of surf culture, but it also helps with nostalgia as well, thinking back to what it was like in those days. Lots of our visitors come through and it becomes an amazing talking point. When I'm with a visitor here, I encourage them to walk a full lap of this, and I encourage them to look at things in here that would not belong in your average family vehicle. And that gives them a set of lenses to look at this object through. So discussions that come out, well, when you look on the dashboard as a starter for here, the fact that we've got not a $1 coin, but a $1 note.
From the mid-1960s to the 80s, Australia used $1 and $2 notes instead of the coins we use now. Depending on the rarity, one of these notes could be worth up to $100 today.
There's also other embellishments which usually won't be found inside a family car. Most cars wouldn't have a lovely faux fur lining against all of the walls and the roof of the vehicle itself as well. You can see the user of this is really embedded in their lifestyle. There's a pair of bathers in there. There's sand stuck in between the cracks of the seats as well. There's a range of things that actually get you to think a bit about what would have been like to be part of that movement, if you like. Now, the van itself is a great trigger for people to think about that period in surf culture. I'm hoping that down the track, we actually get a chance to develop more of that. So that way we can actually share what is surf culture, because it's been so important to being Western Australian. So looking at how surfboards have changed over time, looking at how beachwear has changed over time, how we have now taken on more of a stewardship role about our oceans. So surfers, People who are fishermen are now thinking about, how do I keep these places amazing for my next generation? So if an object like this panel van is able to stimulate that discussion with its mag wheels and its surfboard attached to the top and mattress stuck in the back and a whole bunch of inappropriate stickers stuck on the windows, then that's great. It starts that conversation.
We're taken back to the main foyer, where we meet another tour guide named John. He's going to show us the HMAS Ovens. The Ovens is a submarine housed outside the museum, which was actually used by the Royal Australian Navy. It's 92 metres long and weighs 2,100 tonnes, taking on another 300 tonnes of water when submerged.
One of the 13 submarines purchased by Australia in the 1960s. Now these are an Oberon type submarine, built specifically for conventional warfare. These are a diesel electric submarine, meaning they run on electricity provided from batteries. This is one battery, and there's 448 batteries like this on board.
Inside a glass case against the wall, a large rusted battery sits inside. It's about 1/2 metre wide and reaches chest height.
224 on the port side and 224 on the starboard side. 500 kilo or 1/2 tonne in weight, and they've actually been removed from the submarine because they give off harmful gases to us, so this is the only time that you'll see one. They're wired in series parallel, giving out 440 volts direct current. Now you can wire them in series parallel, which gives us 880 volts. Now taking into account that the electric motors on the drive shafts are turned by the power provided to electric motors from these. So if you go to 880 volts, obviously your time of usage of the batteries is reduced, and then they have to be provided power from the diesel motors. You can do that underwater with the ability of having a snort or a snorkel, same as when you go to the beach.
This snorkel could get oxygen to the diesel motors, so they could be powered. This meant the diesel engines could power the generators to recharge the batteries, powering the submarine. John takes us outside the museum, where the HMAS Ovens is housed. It sits on the submarine slipway leading to Fremantle Harbour, which was actually used during the Second World War.
And these boats mostly used for reconnaissance in and around Australia. So they never fired a shot in anger. These were replaced by the Collins class submarine, which we have in service at the moment. Again, we have 6 of them. The start of the life for the Collins class was a little bit rugged because they had problems with the propellers and they created bubbles which gives off noise, and they could be picked up by the enemy sonar.
Sonar is short for sound navigation and ranging. Sound travels much further in water than it does in air, so a submarine can use the sound to find other vessels in the ocean, as well as map out their surroundings.
Sonar is active and passive. Active is when you send out the electronic beam and it reflects off a target and comes back with that pinging sound. Now that pinging sound, as I said before, is double-edged. One, we obviously can hear it, but so can the enemy. Okay, so we try to remain passive. That is, all the sounds around us come back to the boat. Originally, when these submarines went to sea, there was 3 people and they'd be listening to sounds to work out what they are, but you'd hear fishing boats, you'd hear marine life and such. Nowadays they come back in, they're filtered, and there's actual data before you go to sea with what's out there, so it comes in through the filter into a computer, so you can pretty well say exactly what is there. Okay, in the middle of the boat there you can see a port.
John points to a large round hole on the side of the submarine.
Now these guys weren't very eco-friendly. Everything was put into a canvas bag, crushed down, weighted so it wouldn't come to the surface, and pushed out of the boat. Fortunately nowadays only the biodegradable rubbish is put out of the boat, the rest is taken back to a harbour. Right, the nose of the submarines, or the forward end of the submarine, you have the large sonar array, that's the dome on the front there, and below that you have 3 torpedo shuttered doors, and as you can see there, they're in the closed position. If I can just point you in this direction to a sister submarine of this one, HMAS Oxley, you can see the torpedo shutter doors are open. The torpedo there is about 1/3 through its firing sequence.
To our left is the front end of a ship, which shows a torpedo protruding from the shutter on the side. The torpedo is about 7 metres long. It would weigh nearly 1.5 tonnes and have 300 kilograms of high explosives packed inside if it were operational.
The reason the shutter doors are closed on the ovens is when we go to fire a torpedo, the actual torpedo tubes are flooded by water from the ocean prior to opening. The reason for that is if you open the shutter doors and allow the ocean water just to rush in, one, it would destabilise the boat, two, it makes a lot of noise. Again, noise is our enemy underwater. Now, at the end of the Second World War, they found out that only 1/3 of all shipping that was hit by a torpedo and penetrated actually sunk. They'd close the hatches and get to a safe haven and then have to repair the submarine in, say, 3-4 months. So the Americans at the end of the war did a thesis and they come up with the idea of having a wire-guided torpedo where you could actually guide the torpedo along with sonar and computers towards the target. They also came up with the torpedo would not have to penetrate the submarine. The magnetic field of the ship connecting with the sonar of the torpedo can explode the torpedo underneath the shipping, creating a gas bubble. The bubble rises and it slowly breaks the back of a ship. Now the propellers, and remember I talked about the Collins class submarine, the propellers are unique in a submarine. If you have a look at a ship's propeller there,
John points to a ship propeller behind me. There is paint chipping and rusting around the edges across the 4 blades.
definitely aged, but you can see chunks out of the actual propeller, rusted. That would give off a lot of noise underwater. The propellers on these are perfectly shaped and kept in pristine condition so that they don't create bubbling or boiling of the water whilst the submarine's submerged. So they in particular have to be really looked after, and if you see a submarine come into base here, they actually cover them up so you don't see exactly what type of propellers that each submarine has. These have 2 propellers, one on the port, one on the starboard. The more modern day submarines have the 1 propeller.
John unlocks the gate to a walkway.
If the last person through could close the gate, because I'd hate to have the submarine stolen on the museum.
We climb several floors of stairs along a walkway surrounding the submarine. John unlocks another gate, allowing us on top of the submarine's upper casing. A canopy covers a hatch leading into the submarine. We descend through 2 small round hatches, down steep wooden steps. We have to enter the submarine backwards, as if descending a ladder.
You're right, you're right.
That was the sound of me tripping over one of the steps. We descend through the 2 hatches and enter the submarine's torpedo room.
Welcome to the forward torpedo room, the coolest part of the boat. Not only was it beautiful and cool, but you could actually hear the boat go through the water, and the water really made you calm. It was absolutely a beautiful sound. Now, we came down through the torpedo hatch. The reason for that, and I'll show you the ladder system which we would enter the submarine as submariners, is vertical, so it's dangerous for the elderly and for young children. So this is what we've come down. It's also important, where those 2 wooden rails were, there would have been like a railway track system, and the cranes take the torpedoes, which weigh 1,300 kilo, and they're slowly brought down into here, where men then using the block and tackle, and also you can see the rope system over there, which the torpedoes are then moved into the torpedo tube.
John takes us into the next room. The ceilings are just tall enough for me to stand normally. On the left, right and far walls of the room are a series of bunk beds. The beds are narrow and fairly short, with seat belts at waist height if you were to lay on them.
Okay, this is the Four Ends Junior Sailors Mess. There's 18 odd beds here. All the beds are 6 feet long, sleeping bags. Now, people ask me, is there hot bunking? That is, I get out to go on watch and someone else hops into my bed with their sleeping bag. There wouldn't be if we go to sea operationally. But when the submarine is under maintenance, or when it was first put in the water, or when there is training on board, you have extra people, then there was hot bunking. But a lot of the time, guys would have their hammocks just coming across here and such. Now, the safety belts, you do need these. If the submarine surfaces to turn on the diesel motors, a lot of the fin, it's open to water. So when you surface, it's like that, and you will be thrown out of bed.
The corridors are extremely narrow. We can only walk through them in single file. I have to walk sideways at times. The rooms are separated by round hatches. We have to crouch to be able to climb through them. We walk past the captain's quarters, the kitchen, and even more beds along the wall. John takes us into a room with cast iron levers and dials all along the walls. On the left and right are computers with buttons and dials surrounding. 2 thick stainless steel poles stand horizontally. They continue through the ceiling of the room.
You're now in the control room. If at war, in non-operational times, there'd be around about 12 people here. It would have about 15 to 16 persons at action stations. Over in the far corner, there is a sonar room. In the control room here, this is your attack periscope. This is around about 20 metres to the surface. This would be used to have a look at the what's around you at the last moment before attacking. This is a search periscope, has a seat and pedals which moves the periscope in a 360 degrees surface. On the top of the periscope is a camera, infrared, and also a sextant.
A sextant is an instrument that uses mirrors and lenses to manually calculate the distance of astronomical objects relative to the horizon. This device can be used by mariners to calculate their geographical position at sea.
The same as what Captain Cook used when he came to Australia originally, and the sextant even today for celestial navigation is used. GPS can't penetrate the water, so you rely on your celestial navigation by coming close to the surface and putting up your periscope, looking at the stars and sun. Another method of navigation is dead reckoning. So if we're doing 30 kilometres per hour and we leave Sydney Harbour heading due west, in 1 hour we should have gone 30 kilometres. You take into account tide and things like that, and you've pretty well got exact identification of where you are.
All the lights in the control room suddenly switch off. The room is dark now, lit only by small red lights around the room.
At night time we go to red lighting. It's a little bit more lighter than this because all the dials on all the machinery and indicators actually work. This gets the eyes adjusted, so if you put the periscopes up at night time, you can actually see faster and better.
We continue to the rear end of the submarine. We climb another set of steep steps through 2 narrow hatches to reach the platform again. A canopy surrounds the outside section of the platform. There are pigeons trapped inside.
Jesus Christ. I'm always glad that I left that in because I always get a good laugh at hearing how much that little bird scared me. It wasn't hurt or anything, we just opened the gate and it flew away, he was fine. But thank you so much for listening to The Perth Tourist. This was a show made for broadcast on the Vision Australia radio network and produced by me, Ethan Kavanagh. Episode 3 will be coming out soon. You can also listen to our Fremantle prison episode. We're also looking at trying to get this funded to try and get some more episodes. So if you want to check out the Noise Pilot socials, you'll find some more information on the Kickstarter campaign we've got to try and check out a few more awesome places around Perth. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.